The universe had a rhythm, a slow, unyielding cadence of stars being born and dying, of civilizations rising only to vanish. For millennia, the Great Council of Zithra had believed that humans were extinct. Stories of their ingenuity, courage, and emotional depth were relegated to myths, tales whispered by scholars and historians as bedtime stories for alien children. Yet here, on the barren moon of Syros, a ripple of that long-lost legend stirred again. Commander Leora Vanthi stared out from the observation deck of the council ship, her elongated fingers resting lightly on the railing. The stars outside seemed impossibly distant, yet each one burned with a silent warning. The council had summoned her to investigate unusual energy readings on the outer rim. A signal that had no origin in their star maps, a pattern that seemed deliberate. "Commander," said a voice behind her, crisp with authority yet tinged with unease. It was Counselor Theron, one of the oldest members, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the glow of distant galaxies. "Do you understand the risk? If this, whatever it is, proves to be human," he let the word hang heavy and dangerous, "it could ignite panic across every system we oversee." Leora did understand. Humans were supposed to be gone. Their extinction had been meticulous, their colonies erased from history. Yet the universe was rarely so neat. And deep in the marrow of her instincts, Leora felt an inexplicable thrill, a spark of anticipation mingled with fear. The signal led them to a ruined world, scarred by time and conflict. Once it must have been vibrant, oceans reflecting twin suns, forests breathing life into the air. Now skeletal cities jutted from the cracked earth, monuments of vanished ambition, and yet among the ruins, there was movement, a faint rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat hiding under centuries of silence. "Scan for life signs," Leora ordered, her voice steady but her pulse quickening. The crew obeyed with mechanical precision, yet hesitation shadowed their actions. For centuries no human had existed. To find one now would challenge everything the council believed. The scanners flickered, hesitated, and then locked onto a single signature. It was faint, irregular, fragile. A human heartbeat, the machines confirmed, beating against impossible odds. Leora's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the transport." "I will investigate personally." Counselor Theron's voice dropped to a whisper. "You cannot know what you will face, humanity." They were capable of wonders, yes, but also horrors beyond comprehension. They are unpredictable. "Perhaps that is why I must see for myself," Leora replied, her tone unwavering. She had faced threats before, horrors that would make lesser beings crumble, yet the idea of meeting a human, a living, breathing testament to a species declared extinct, awoke something within her. Curiosity, hope, awe, and fear. The transport ship descended slowly, its engines stirring clouds of dust and ash. The ruins stretched below like a graveyard of ambition, but in the heart of a collapsed city, Leora saw it. A figure, tall, lean, moving with an agility that defied the broken ground beneath. Its skin was pale under the dim sun, hair tousled like the wild grasses of a forgotten meadow. But it was the eyes, bright, piercing, impossibly alive, that drew her in. The human stopped, sensing the intrusion, and then it did something wholly unexpected. It smiled. Not a polite, cautious smile, but a full, unguarded one, as if greeting an old friend after an eternity. Leora's breath caught. No alien eyes, no council reports, no legend had prepared her for the intensity of that gaze. There was recognition there, an understanding that transcended species, a depth of emotion that shook the foundations of everything she had been taught. "This is impossible," whispered Counselor Theron, though he remained on the bridge, his body trembling despite his calm demeanor. The human took a step forward, unarmed, unafraid. The sensors, the scanners, the weapons all recorded but did not react. The universe had expected silence. Instead, it received a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat, hope. "Hello," the human said. The word was soft, melodic, carrying warmth and humor, sorrow and defiance all at once. Leora's fingers tightened around the railing. She wanted to speak, to question, to command, but the words tangled in her throat. Instead, she felt something ancient and profound awaken within her. The realization that this was no myth, no echo. Humanity was alive, and the galaxy had underestimated them. The War Council would hear of this. The universe would hear of this. But first she needed to understand. The last human, standing alone amidst the ruins of a world that had tried to erase him, was waiting, and for the first time in centuries, the universe trembled with possibility. The War Council chamber was vast, an imposing hall carved from crystalline stone that shimmered with the reflection of distant stars. Its very walls seemed to hum with the weight of countless decisions, victories, and regrets. Leora Vanthi stood before the assembly, her posture steady but her heart racing. In her hands she carried the report she had feared to write, the one that would alter the Council's understanding of the universe forever. Humans were alive. Counselor Theron's eyes, dark pools of caution and wisdom, scanned the room. "I trust your report is accurate, Commander," he said, though the slight tremor in his voice betrayed doubt. "Do not exaggerate. Humans were extinct. We eliminated them because they were unpredictable." Leora nodded. "I have seen one, alive, unarmed yet unafraid. They do not merely survive, they adapt. They observe. They calculate. And yet there is something else. Something I cannot define." Her gaze flicked to the communication panel where live feed from the ruins of the humans' world streamed silently. There he was, moving through the collapsed streets as if he belonged to a rhythm of life entirely foreign to the Council. A murmur swept the chamber, low and uneasy. Some counselors shifted in their seats, their appendages brushing against the crystalline floor. To see a human alive after centuries was more than an anomaly. It was a direct challenge to every doctrine, every strategic decision that had guided the Council for generations. Counselor Vetra, sharp and precise, leaned forward. "Explain, Commander. This human, what is its intention? Is it a threat? An infiltrator? How many are there?" Leora's hands tightened around the console. "I do not know. I have not seen others. But I can tell you this. It does not act like any species we have catalogued. Its behavior is layered, emotional, complex. It displays intelligence that surpasses prediction models, and yet it is not aggressive." Theron's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "Non-aggressive, yes, but humans have always been dangerous precisely because of that. They survive where others perish, and they fight when least expected. You may have seen one, Commander, but you cannot know what lies in its mind or what it represents. We eradicated them for a reason." A pause fell over the chamber. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. Every counselor knew the stories. Humans had resisted the extinction campaigns with strategies that no other species could anticipate, with courage and unpredictability that had forced alliances of countless worlds to retreat. Yet they had been declared gone, extinct. And now in a quiet corner of a ruined planet, one human had returned, not with armies, not with weapons, but simply being. Counselor Jarek, younger and less tempered by the weight of history, leaned forward eagerly. "Commander, are you suggesting we engage diplomatically?" "That we welcome this human?" Leora's voice was calm but firm. "Not welcome, observe, understand. If we act with fear or aggression, we may trigger the very unpredictability the Council fears. We must first see why it survives, why it endures, and perhaps what it wants." Vetra's tone sharpened, almost slicing through the air. "And if it wants nothing but to challenge us? To provoke war? Are we to gamble with the stability of the entire galaxy?" Leora met her gaze evenly. "If it provokes war, it will be because we have failed to understand it. If it does not, we may learn more in hours than we have in centuries." Theron exhaled, a sound that seemed more like wind through jagged crystal than air. "You underestimate the danger," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Humans do not merely exist. They endure. They evolve. They survive when all hope is lost, and that terrifies every species that has tried to erase them." A holographic projection flickered to life above the chamber, showing the human in motion again. His eyes caught the light in a way that seemed almost sentient, analyzing, questioning, daring. There was an elegance to his movement, but also a rawness. A vulnerability that was neither weakness nor threat, but a testament to resilience. A low hum of voices rose as counselors whispered among themselves. Some feared chaos, others feared opportunity, but all felt the same tremor of awe. Finally, Counselor Vetra spoke, her tone measured, almost reverent. Commander Vanthi, we cannot act rashly. Prepare a secure observation unit. Let us study this human. Let us see if the myths hold truth. But know this, if it is dangerous, if it defies our control, the Council will not hesitate. Leora inclined her head. Understood, Counselor. But know this as well, humans are not so easily controlled. And if you underestimate them, you may regret it. Theran's eyes lingered on the projection, and for a moment the weight of centuries seemed to crush the air. Then we watch, he said softly. And we wait. Outside the council chamber the stars pulsed indifferently. One human heartbeat, fragile and defiant, had shattered centuries of certainty. And the galaxy, vast and cold, began to feel the stirrings of a force no one had anticipated. The War Council had a choice, fear or understanding. But the human had already begun to define its own path. The ruins were silent except for the whisper of wind through broken towers and the faint hum of the transport ship hovering above. Leora Vanthi stepped onto the cracked streets, her boots echoing softly against stone that had not felt human presence for centuries. The human was waiting, not hiding, not cautious, simply waiting, as though the world had been holding its breath for this moment. Commander Vanthi, the human said, voice carrying easily across the debris-strewn plaza. I expected someone sooner. You came alone? Leora halted a few meters away, letting her sensors register the subtle details. He was taller than she had imagined, his frame lithe but solid. His eyes, those impossible golden-tinged eyes, were steady, intelligent, and calm. There was no fear, yet no arrogance either. Only presence. I am not here to harm you, she said carefully. I am here to understand, to observe. The human tilted his head as if weighing the words, measuring intent. Understand humans? Or understand yourself? The question struck her unexpectedly. She blinked. I do not understand. He smiled. Not broadly, but faintly, enough to warm the hollow air around them. Then you are like everyone else who came before. Curious, cautious, fearful. Humans inspire that reaction. We always have. Leora studied him. She had faced alien predators, cunning warlords, and the dead silence of abandoned worlds. But none had made her feel so small and so alive at the same time. There was an intensity in his calm, a depth she could not yet measure. What is your name? She asked. He hesitated, a faint flicker of amusement passing across his features. Elias, he said simply. And you are Commander Vanthi. I have read about your kind, or what was recorded. Leora felt a chill. You read records from before? Elias nodded. History is persistent. Some knowledge never dies, even when the species does. His gaze drifted to the collapsed buildings, to streets where children had once played, markets had thrived. I know what they said about us, that we were extinct, that our stubborn hearts were broken, but here I am. There was an intensity to the way he said it, a quiet defiance that vibrated through the ruins. Leora felt a twinge of something she could not name. Admiration, maybe. Or perhaps it was hope stirring where certainty had always been. You survived alone? She asked. He shrugged almost casually. Alone, no. Survival is never solitary. Every human carries the memory of those who came before, the lessons, the mistakes, the courage. We endure because we remember, not because we are fearless. Leora's fingers tightened on her belt. The council had feared unpredictability, chaos, aggression, but Elias radiated none of these in the conventional sense. He was resilience incarnate, alive with history, intelligence, and emotion that no model could predict. Why reveal yourself now? She asked. After centuries? He laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo through the ruins like sunlight. Because the universe is patient, Commander. But time is a pressure we cannot escape. I had to know if anyone still listened, if anyone remembered, if the story of humanity mattered. Leora took a careful step closer. It does. It matters more than you know. Elias's gaze softened, and for a moment he seemed younger, almost fragile. A man shaped by loss, yet unbroken. Then maybe you can help me. Or maybe you will fail like so many before. But you are different. You are here to see, not to judge. That matters. The wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of ash and forgotten life. Leora realized something vital. Elias was not merely a survivor. He was a mirror. A reflection of what the council had erased yet could not extinguish. I need to report to the council, she said reluctantly. They must know you exist. He nodded slowly. Then tell them this. Humans are more than history. More than memory. We are consequences we endure. And if the galaxy thinks it can erase that, it will be surprised. A tremor of understanding passed through Leora. The human before her was not just a relic of a vanished species. He was the embodiment of persistence, creativity, and emotion, a force that could not be contained by fear or control. She raised a communicator to her chest. Council, this is Commander Vanthi. I am standing with the human. Alive, unarmed, and intelligent. You need to see this with your own eyes. There was silence on the other end, heavy with disbelief. Then Counselor Theran's voice, cautious and tense, broke through. Commander, are you certain? I am certain, Leora replied, her voice firm. He is human, and he is more than any record could convey. You must see him. Elias watched the interaction quietly, then stepped closer to Leora. Do they fear us? He asked softly. Fear and respect, she replied. In equal measure. He smiled faintly, and for the first time, Leora felt the weight of centuries lift just a little. Humans were supposed to be gone, extinct. But here he was, a single heartbeat of defiance, a living proof that the universe had misjudged them. And in that moment, standing among ruins and whispers of history, Leora understood something profound. The galaxy had not prepared itself for the return of humanity. And it never would be ready. Back on the council ship, the chamber hummed with tension. Leora had transmitted live feeds of Elias, human, alive, unarmed, and entirely unpredictable, to every counselor. The War Council, a body of beings accustomed to control, strategy, and calculation, now faced something they could neither predict nor dominate. Counselor Theran broke the silence. His multifaceted eyes reflected worry, curiosity, and an emotion no one could quite name. Respect, perhaps, or fear tinged with awe. Every simulation we have of humans is obsolete. Commander, are you certain of his nature? One human surviving is unprecedented. But what is to prevent him from becoming a strategic threat? Leora met his gaze evenly. Nothing prevents him except choice. And so far he has made none that threatens anyone. In fact, he seems to want communication. Counselor Vetra's voice sliced through the tension. Communication? Commander? This is a species that survived annihilation campaigns. They mastered deception, cunning, resilience. Do you not see the danger in allowing him to speak with us freely? Leora shook her head. We cannot treat him as a threat yet. Elias is not an army, not a weapon, not a political tool. He is human. He represents a species that defied extinction, and that matters more than fear. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Counselor Jurek leaned forward, impatient. And if he deceives us? If he manipulates us, what then? We could be inviting disaster into every system under our governance. Theran's voice softened, almost a whisper. Jurek, you forget one thing. Humans are never what they appear to be. That is their danger. And their beauty. At that moment, the live feed shifted. Elias had noticed the observation sensors and stepped closer. His gaze fixed on the holographic projection that represented the council. His expression was calm, measured yet full of intensity, a presence that demanded recognition. He spoke, his voice carrying across the chamber. I know you are watching. I know what you expect, fear, hostility, judgment. But I am not here to provoke. I am here to exist, to speak, to remind you that humans endure, and that endurance is not always loud or violent. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is a heartbeat in the ruins of what others tried to erase. A hush fell over the chamber. For the first time, the counselors felt the weight of centuries press against them. One being, one human, alive and unbroken, had shifted the balance of certainty. Batra's tone was cautious, almost reverent. Elias, why now? After so long? Why emerge? Elias' gaze swept across the projection, unblinking. Because time does not wait. Because the galaxy has forgotten lessons it should never have ignored. Humans are not merely survivors. We are consequences. We endure because the universe believes it can erase us, and yet, here I am. Theron leaned forward, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. And what do you want from us? Elias's smile was faint, enigmatic. Not much understanding, recognition. Perhaps a chance to show that humans are more than what history has reduced us to. I do not seek dominion. I do not seek vengeance. I seek dialogue. And perhaps in dialogue, the chance for coexistence. Jirek's appendages twitched nervously. Dialogue. With a species that defied annihilation? You speak as if it is a simple conversation. Commander, do you not feel the danger? I feel it, Leora admitted. But I also feel potential. Humans are not predictable. That is their strength. And we will learn more by listening than by fearing. If we act with aggression, we may create the very conflict we hope to avoid. Theron sighed, a sound like wind through fractured crystal. So we observe, we study, and we hope that our fear does not betray us. The counselors nodded, some reluctantly, some with curiosity edged by awe. The War Council had faced countless existential threats over millennia, yet none had unsettled them as Elias did, not because of his strength, but because of his humanity. Back on Syros, Elias turned to Leora as the transmission ended. They fear me, he said softly. They will try to control me, predict me. That is what all species do when faced with the unknown. You are human, Leora replied almost gently. You survive because you cannot be fully controlled. He smiled faintly. Exactly. And that is why I exist, why I endure, not to conquer, but to remind the galaxy that existence itself is resistance, that the story of humanity is not finished. Not yet. The wind whispered through the ruins again, carrying the faint scent of ash, earth, and something more elusive. Hope. Leora realized that this was no longer merely about observation. It was about trust, judgment, and the courage to face the unexpected. The War Council would have its debate, its fear, its plans. But Elias had already begun a quiet revolution. Not of armies nor of weapons, but of ideas, resilience, and the undeniable proof that humanity, against all odds, still mattered. And in that silent, ruined world, one human stood, unbowed, unbroken, and profoundly alive. The War Council decided on a cautious approach. Observation from a distance, measures in place to protect the galaxy, but no interference. Yet Elias, the human, seemed aware of every sensor, every scan, every precaution they took. It was as though he could sense not only their gaze, but the intention behind it. Leora returned to the ruins alongside him, walking carefully through streets littered with broken machinery and shattered monuments. Do you know they're watching? She asked. Elias shrugged, eyes scanning the horizon. Of course. They always watch. But watching is different from understanding. I'm more than a signal to be studied, Commander. I'm a question. And questions. They are harder to contain than answers. As they walked, a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath them. Dust and debris cascaded from fractured buildings. Leora's sensors registered a seismic anomaly, the result of a subterranean collapse threatening to bury part of the city. Her instincts screamed for retreat, yet Elias moved forward, unhesitating, eyes focused. Stay back, she ordered. But he ignored her. Using raw ingenuity, Elias navigated the collapse, leveraging broken beams and stones to create a path that would allow both of them to cross safely. Leora's scanners recorded every movement, every calculation, every instinctive choice. The Council's data feeds hummed with amazement. One human, alone, could manipulate his environment, assess risk, and act decisively under extreme pressure. When they reached safety, Leora's voice shook, a rare crack in her usual composure. That was incredible. You didn't hesitate, you just knew what to do. Elias smiled faintly, brushing ash from his clothing. It's called survival. Humans adapt because we must. Not because we are the strongest, not because we are the fastest, but because we refuse to accept extinction as our end. Every obstacle is a lesson, every collapse an opportunity. Leora studied him. His resilience was extraordinary, but there was more. A quiet empathy in the way he moved, a consideration for both life and structure that no machine could mimic. Humans had been declared extinct because they were unpredictable, yet here he was, proving that unpredictability was not chaos. It was creativity, intelligence, and moral consideration entwined. She gestured toward the ruins. Do you have others like you? Families, communities? Elias shook his head. I am alone in this time. But humanity is never truly solitary. We carry generations in our minds, histories in our hearts. Even when erased, even when hunted, we endure in memory and spirit. That is what you cannot kill. Back on the council ship, the War Council analyzed live feeds. The debates had shifted from fear to fascination. Theron spoke quietly, almost to himself. This human, he defies every model. He is dangerous not because he seeks conquest, but because he cannot be predicted, cannot be contained, and cannot be ignored. Vetra's appendages twitched nervously. Dangerous, yes, but in a way that commands respect. There is brilliance in his simplicity, and a strength rooted in emotion. Jurik's impatience was evident. We cannot afford to indulge fascination. One misstep, one misunderstanding, and the galaxy could pay the price. Theron turned sharply to him. Jurik, you underestimate what it means to face something truly alive. Something that has survived when all predictions failed. That is power. And humanity wields it quietly, cleverly, relentlessly. Meanwhile, Elias led Leora to the remains of a central square, a place that had once been the heart of the city. He knelt and began clearing rubble with his hands, not hurriedly but with deliberate care. In his actions was a reverence for what had existed, for what had been lost, and for what could still endure. Leora felt a pang she had never expected. Admiration mingled with sorrow. Humanity, she realized, was more than extinction campaigns and fearsome reputation. It was emotion, ingenuity, and moral courage intertwined in a single heartbeat. Elias looked up at her. Commander, the galaxy thinks in terms of power, armies, weapons, dominance. But survival requires something deeper. Creativity, empathy, resilience, and the refusal to accept that the story is over. That is why humans endure. Leora nodded slowly, understanding dawning. The council had feared him because he was unpredictable, yes, but unpredictability was only a part of his strength. The real power was the spirit behind it, the unyielding refusal to vanish quietly into the void. And as the sun dipped below the shattered horizon, casting long shadows across the ruins, Leora realized something extraordinary. The galaxy had not only underestimated humans, it had never truly understood them. Elias's eyes met hers, bright, defiant, and unbowed. Watch closely, Commander. Humanity is not finished. And the galaxy has no idea what it's about to witness. Leora felt a thrill unlike any she had experienced before. Fear and awe mingled in her chest, but above all a quiet certainty. The universe had been wrong to believe humans were gone, and Elias, one human against the void, was proof. The War Council had reached a consensus. Elias must be tested, not harmed, not provoked to violence, but challenged in ways designed to measure intelligence, adaptability, and moral judgment. After centuries of studying alien species, they had never encountered one so entirely unpredictable. Leora stood beside Elias as the transport ship's sensors created a simulation field over the ruined city. Holographic constructs of alien predators, collapsing structures, and unpredictable environmental hazards appeared around them. The Council's aim was simple: observe human responses in real time. Elias tilted his head, studying the simulation with calm eyes. You want to see if I break, he said softly. If I panic, if I fail. But that is not a human way. We adapt, we survive, and we think. The first simulation began. A sudden collapse of buildings threatened to trap Leora and Elias. Without hesitation, Elias grabbed her hand, pulling her to safety, then quickly calculated a path to stabilize falling debris. Every movement was deliberate, efficient, yet fluid. blending instinct with analysis. Counselor Theron watched through the observation deck, his antennae twitching with astonishment. No species navigates complexity like this. He anticipates, adapts, yet does not lose empathy. The next challenge came. A holographic predator engineered to mimic the deadliest hunters of known systems approached with lethal speed. Elias studied it for a heartbeat, then, without fear, used debris, terrain, and its own projected patterns against it. In minutes, the predator was neutralized, not destroyed, but redirected harmlessly. Vetra, observing, whispered to Jarek, "He does not kill. He does not dominate. He outthinks, outfeels, that is, human brilliance." Elias turned to Leora with a faint smile. "Do you see? Survival is not about brute force. It is about understanding the environment, the threat, and the balance of consequences. That is why humans endure where others fail." The final simulation was subtler yet far more insidious. A moral dilemma. Holographic projections of alien civilians were trapped in the ruins, with pathways that would save either a larger number at the cost of a few, or a few with no guarantee of larger survival. The Council wanted to see decision-making, priorities, and ethical frameworks under pressure. Elias paused, studying the projections, weighing each choice. Then methodically he created a path that minimized casualties while ensuring long-term survival. Every choice was intentional, every movement calculated, yet guided by compassion as much as intelligence. Theron exhaled slowly. It is not merely survival, it is humanity. Empathy intertwined with strategy. Adaptability grounded in ethics. No species has demonstrated this combination before. Leora watched him silently, her admiration deepening. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their brilliance was not just instinct or cunning. It was thought, emotion, morality, and courage woven together. They were not merely survivors. They were architects of possibility, capable of seeing paths others could not even imagine. The Council, long accustomed to controlling the flow of civilizations, felt a quiet unease. Here was a being they could neither dominate nor predict fully. Every test had been passed with grace, ingenuity, and restraint. Elias did not merely adapt, he excelled, reshaping the rules by which survival was measured. Elias looked up at the observation sensors, his golden eyes unwavering. "I have survived because I could think, because I could care, because I refused to vanish quietly." That is human strength, not in domination, not in conquest, but in endurance and choice. Every life, every action matters. That is why we endure. Theron's voice was barely audible. He is extraordinary, not a weapon, yet more dangerous than any weapon. Not a conqueror, yet more influential than armies. Humanity is not merely alive. It is a force no one anticipated. Vetra's appendages twitched, and we are only beginning to understand it. Elias turned to Leora, his expression softening. "You see why they fear us, do you not? Not because we seek war, but because we cannot be contained, predicted, or erased. And yet, fear does not have to lead to conflict. Understanding does." Leora nodded slowly. "Then let them watch. Let them learn. Humanity is here, Elias, and the galaxy will have no choice but to reckon with it." Outside, the stars pulsed with cold indifference, unaware that a single human, one heartbeat of resilience, morality, and brilliance, had challenged the assumptions of a galaxy, and the War Council, masters of control and calculation, had no idea just how extraordinary humanity truly was. The War Council had gathered for an unprecedented assembly. Every member, every voice, every eye focused on a single live feed from Ceros. Elias, the last human, or perhaps the first of a new era, stood calmly among the ruins, the wind stirring dust around him like a halo of quiet defiance. Counselor Theron spoke first, his voice steady but layered with awe. "What we have witnessed is beyond prediction. One human, alive, unarmed, yet more powerful in influence than any fleet, any weapon, any species we have catalogued. How do we respond?" Vetra's voice quivered slightly, a rare display of vulnerability. "We cannot threaten him. We cannot predict him. Every model, every plan we have is obsolete. He does not act like a predator, he acts like a force of nature that cannot be contained. Theron's multifaceted eyes swept the chamber. Then perhaps we are asking the wrong question. It is not what we do to him. It is what he does to us. And what humanity, however few, can do to the galaxy. On Syros, Elias began moving deliberately, speaking to the council through the live feed. "I know you have questions," he said, his golden eyes steady and penetrating. "You want to measure me, to predict me, to control what you do not understand. But I am not a weapon. I am proof. Proof that survival, endurance, and choice matter. Humanity has endured because we refuse to vanish quietly, and because we believe every action, every life, every choice has meaning." A murmur passed through the council chamber. They had studied species for millennia. They had catalogued, simulated, and tested. But never had they encountered one who combined intelligence, morality, resilience, and courage in such profound balance. Jurek's antennae twitched nervously. "He is teaching us in a way we cannot resist. How do we respond?" Theron's eyes softened with resolve. "We respond not with fear but with understanding. We allow him the dignity to exist, to prove what humans truly are, and perhaps we learn from him." Leora, standing near the projection, felt a swell of admiration. "Elias," she said quietly, "you've already changed them. They cannot treat humanity the same way again. Not after seeing you." Elias turned toward her, faint smile touching his lips. "It is not me alone. It is the species. It is our refusal to vanish. The galaxy believes it can erase humans, and yet here we are, not hidden, not diminished, alive. Observed, yes, but undefeated." Theron leaned forward, addressing the council with conviction. The galaxy feared extinction would silence humanity. But one human alive is not a warning, it is a revelation. Their brilliance lies not in conquest, but in thought, in empathy, in resilience. We cannot contain them, but perhaps we can coexist. Perhaps we can be inspired. Vetra's voice, trembling with newfound respect, added, "We were wrong to assume control, wrong to assume predictability. Humanity is extraordinary, not because it conquers, but because it endures with heart, with intellect, with courage." Elias stepped onto the highest ruin, sunlight catching the edges of his figure. "I am only the beginning," he said softly, yet every word carried weight. "Humanity has always survived when the odds were impossible. And the galaxy will have no choice but to reckon with our existence, not with fear, but with understanding." A hush fell over the council chamber. For centuries they had believed themselves masters of order, arbiters of fate. Yet in that moment, one human had shattered their assumptions, not through violence, but through presence, intelligence, and indomitable spirit. Leora's eyes glistened as she watched him, a mixture of awe and hope swelling in her chest. Humanity, she realized, was more than extinct legends or feared tales. It was a living testament to endurance, creativity, and the power of choice, the power to survive against all odds, the power to inspire, the power to change the galaxy without firing a single weapon. Elias raised a hand in quiet farewell to the council. "Remember this, to underestimate humanity is to misunderstand the universe itself. We endure, we adapt, and we never ever vanish quietly." The feed ended. Silence filled the council chamber, heavy and profound. The galaxy had witnessed a heartbeat, the pulse of a species that should have been gone, yet now stood as an emblem of hope, resilience, and brilliance. Theron exhaled slowly. "They are no longer extinct, they are extraordinary," Vetra added softly, "and we are fortunate to witness the beginning of their resurgence." Leora looked to the stars beyond the chamber, thinking of Elias standing among ruins, alive against impossible odds. She smiled faintly, a warmth she hadn't felt in centuries. Humanity was back, and the universe would never be the same. In the silent reaches of Syros, a single human stood, unbowed, unbroken, and radiant with the promise of a species reborn. And for the first time in millennia, the stars themselves seemed to pulse with anticipation. Humanity was alive. Humanity would endure, and the galaxy finally understood.